Welcome to Conversations on the Coast, the Bay Area's premier author interview program. And today we are going to enter, for me at least, new territory. We're going to learn about a series of books, now number 16, and we're going to find out how all that happened. And we're going to learn about the latest book in this series called Aunt Dimity and the Family Tree. And I said that right because you instruct us to say it like Trinity, Dimity. Aunt Dimity and the Family Tree. It's a novel, if you wish, by Nancy Atherton and published by Viking. You know, it's a novel, and indeed it's more than that. It's part of an enduring series. Number 16. How will you ever do that? Is it like 16 years ago you started this?
No, not really, because the first two books were on 2-year cycles. Uh-huh. So the first book came out in 1992, so it's longer than 16 years. And I have no idea how it happened. Okay. The other day, I have a little shelf in my office where I keep my own books for reference purposes. If I need, what color was that character's eyes? I go back and check. Yeah. Well, this is the first time I went to put the new book on the shelf and it didn't fit. And I stood back
Well, it's very simple. Either you move or stop writing.
No, get a bigger bookshelf.
Oh, okay.
But it really was, I looked at it and said, when did that happen? How did that happen?
Wow.
I am so lucky. I'm very lucky. But it is astonishing to me when people say 16 and I look over my shoulder. Oh, they're talking about me. Got it.
Now, one of the other things a term they use to describe your books is a term new to me, which is probably a tribute to my stupidity. Your book is a super cozy mystery.
Yes, it is. Now, adding super, that's new to me, too. I haven't heard that until this minute.
I figured that was.
But
if you get to 16, it's super.
No, that means it's ultra cozy.
Oh, and what is cozy?
A cozy mystery, there are different subgenres of mystery in America, and there are hard-boiled mysteries, and that would you know what I mean when I say a hard-boiled mystery.
Or noir.
A cozy mystery is much less violent, much less dark, much more the village setting with. The mysteries can be quite complex, but they're not brutal. The deaths usually take place off stage, and it's about how they affect the people around them rather than the graphic description of somebody's neck being slashed. It's cozier, to put it simply. It's frequently it doesn't have to be, but very frequently it's a rural setting. And it cottages, you get the picture. Chintz sofas, flowers, gardens.
All right.
And my books are super cozy because there's not even... I write mysteries with no murder, no crime, and no detective. So there's not even... There's people who die, but they all die of natural causes.
Well, I don't know. I think that's diminishing the role of one of your... I guess she's an ongoing character, Laurie Shepard.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't she a kind of a detective?
Oh, yes, but there's more to mystery than murder.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, that's so I don't, there's all sorts of mysteries that she goes out and she sort of stumbles into and then becomes obsessed with figuring out what's going on, who, what, why, where, when.
Yeah.
But she's not stumbling into a pool of blood. She's stumbling into other... Oh, yes, me too.
Good.
I would give myself nightmares. I can't write that stuff.
Now, some 15, 16 years ago, you started to write this kind of mystery. And the other question I have is, where did Aunt Dimity come from?
Well, I'll tell you, I honestly didn't start out to write any kind of mystery. I didn't start out to write any kind of book, actually. I sat up in the middle. I had no dreams or aspirations to be a writer. I sat up in the middle of the night one night, and the first 2 lines of the first book were just in my head. And those lines are, when I learned of Aunt Dimity's death, I was stunned. Not because she was dead, but because I'd never known she'd been alive.
You certainly would stun anyone.
I had no idea who was speaking. I didn't know who Aunt Dimity was. And the next line in the book is, maybe I should explain. And I quite literally wrote that book to find out what those two lines meant.
Interesting.
And I didn't think of it as a mystery. I just thought of it as this strange little novel that was sort of a mystery and sort of a romance, and it had history in it.
It was a cozy mystery.
It was, I invented a new subgenre just purely by accident.
Well, now Dimity's gone on. Clearly popular, and she gets around. She's just back from Australia.
New Zealand.
New Zealand.
New Zealand, yes.
Aunt Dimity Down Under was the name of the book.
Yep.
And she's a hunter. And Aunt Dimity Vampire Hunter is one in the series. And she takes on evil, it seems to me. Aunt Dimity beats the devil, and Aunt Dimity slays the dragon. She's quite a woman. And Aunt Dimity,
never a dull moment.
Never. And Aunt Dimity and the family tree continues the tradition. And it's also full of very fascinating characters. But before we meet them, we have to meet a village called Finch.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at JimFosterCoc and email JimFosterCoc@gmail.com.
Joining us today is Nancy Atherton, and we're talking about her 16th book in a series called the Aunt Dimity series. And its title, of course, is Aunt Dimity and the Family Tree. Publishers Weekly liked it a bit. Series fans, they say, will delight in the antics of familiar characters, in particular Finch's single ladies, and the charming portrayal of English village life. And that village life really is central to making this thing churn out. And the name of the village is Finch. And somewhere, either you say in the book or I concluded that the main industry in Finch is gossip and watching over what other people do.
Oh, absolutely.
Is there such a place except in your fervid brow?
Oh, I lived in a small town. I lived in a very small town. Smaller than Finch, really, in central Illinois. Uh-huh. It's a lovely place called Bellflower. It was 424 people.
Wow.
No gas station. 3 churches.
No gas station.
But 3 churches. And it was wonderful.
Spiritual fuel.
And it was wonderful because everybody knew. There's a plus side and a minus side to everybody knowing your business. And I explore that in Finch because the nice thing is if you're in trouble, everybody knows and they're going to help you out.
Yep.
They'll show up with a casserole if you're sick. They're going to make sure you get your mail. And the bad thing is nothing is ever yours again. Just give up all sense of privacy because it's gone. Just out the window. But,
But the other thing is that all this knowing everybody else's business is done with what I would call British or English politeness. And,
yes.
And, you smile at everybody, although you're polite. Stabbing them in the back.
And also it leads to it's not everybody knows each other's business, but they may not get it right.
Oh.
So, oddly enough.
What's the need of that?
So the one, that's right. Don't let knowledge interfere with opinions. Yeah. And so you can start all sorts of hijinks and that happens in real life too. I mean, it's like playing a game of telephone. Things get garbled in the transmission, and that can be so much fun. And I want to point out that the single ladies in Finch are all in their 60s, and are
that's really a certain age.
Very excited because an eligible bachelor he's a widower. in his 70s has just moved to town.
And American in good health
and rich.
And rich. Now, the stars, the lady stars, are somewhat led by a woman with the, I think, unfortunate name of Peggy Taxman. I didn't like Peggy.
Oh, Peggy is a wonderful character. She used to be Peggy Kitchen, and then she got married, and now she's Peggy Taxman. Oh. And she is the bossy boots to end all bossy boots. She is officious, she is obnoxious, she is demanding, she is arrogant. And without her, nothing would ever happen in the village. She's the reason they have a village fete. She's the reason they have a harvest festival. She's the reason the nativity play takes place, because she gets everybody up off their keisters in their own little cottages and forces them to participate in village life.
Or else.
And they all, it's that, we all know, I know someone just like that. And I probably know several people that you just want to strangle them sometimes, but without them, the world would stop spinning.
True.
They give us the rest of us the little poke we need. Yeah. So that Peggy, I love Peggy Taxman, and she makes me laugh a lot when I'm writing her.
Following her, kind of behind her, I would never in front.
Never.
Are women with names like Elspeth, Opal, Selena, and Millicent. And I guess they're just examples of the power that Peggy Taxman has.
Well, they're always vying for power in Finch, and they're always trying to sort of sneak one over on Peggy, and rarely do they succeed. But there's always, and that's very true in any small community, where two or more are gathered, there'll always be power struggles. I think that's from some old ancient text, but it's true. And they all have their own little stakes in the village life. And these are what my main character's husband, he calls them the four handmaidens.
The four handmaidens.
He ends up calling them the four handmaidens of the apocalypse.
and for good reasons. Now, given this kind of situation, this kind of lifestyle, if you will, in the village, they're bound to come times that someone's reputation is about to be shattered.
And that's dangerous. You have to be very careful. One of the books in Aunt Dimity Detective, that is something that happens if somebody has a terrible rumor go around about them.
Yeah. And
it has to be proved wrong, because once you lose your reputation in a serious way, you'll have to move.
Sally Pine, the proprietor of the local tea room, is in such a spot.
Yes, she is. And she needs help and it's her own fault. She's gotten herself in a very silly situation, but if word gets out of how silly she was, she will lose face forever. They will never let her forget it, and she will have to just leave.
Well, she's done a terrible thing. She's gone to Mexico and carried on, as one might say.
In a very innocent way. That is not her main. That is not the thing that would ruin her reputation. What she has done is she's gone there and pretended to be someone much richer and much more aristocratic than she really is. And if her
much higher
class
on the social scale.
Yes.
Yeah.
She has tarted up her accent and pretended to be a lady. And that would really get her in hot water with the rest of her neighbors.
Now, the plan to rescue her reputation is going quite well until the family tree is stolen. Now, how do you steal a family tree? Stay tuned, we'll let you know.
You're listening to Conversations on the Coast with Jim Foster. Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at JimFosterCoc and email jimfostercoc@gmail.com.
This is Conversations on the Coast. Aunt Dimity and the Family Tree is the book we're talking about. And is it right to call it a novel, or should we call it something else?
It's a mystery. It's an Aunt Dimity mystery.
Should we call it a book about
No.
a paranormal? No.
That was not my idea.
With those funny rabbit ears on the cover.
That's Reginald. That's Reginald, who has been there from the very start. I know it's
Reginald.
Yeah. And,
Reginald's,
they came up.
Reginald's in the study where Dimity flies out of.
And they've both been there from the beginning.
Yeah, they certainly have.
But yeah, my publisher came up with and I love my publisher, don't get me wrong, but they came up with the paranormal detective tag, which I loathe. I absolutely loathe. I think it's just gives a completely wrong impression of what my books are like.
Yeah.
It's not that.
Well, okay, it's not that.
No.
Aunt Dimity and the Family Tree is a wonderful book. It's
Thank
a novel.
you.
The author who's with us is Nancy Atherton. The publisher is Viking. And a new medium to me, just to let you know how uninformed I can be, called the RT Book Reviews.
Romantic Times.
The RT stands for?
Romantic Times.
Romantic
And they're
Times.
wonderful. They're wonderful. They're just a terrific... they've informed me about writers I hadn't known about, and they're
well, their
terrific.
Remarks on the press release start
I haven't
out,
seen this.
well, wait till you hear this.
Okay.
Atherton's series is, you ready for this?
Fill in the blank.
Coziest of cozy. I take it that's high compliment.
That's high, and it's absolutely accurate.
Well, congratulations.
Thank
Gone
you.
out on our air first.
Thank you, RT.
Okay, way to go, RT. There's no murder in this light adventure, and we've already learned that's part of the way of writing this kind of book. Instead, the mysteries concern an old estate and the identities of characters old and new. A light-hearted tale told at a gentle pace carries the reader along to a satisfying conclusion. Now, I would like to add a cliche to that.
Go right ahead.
I wish I could say it better. But what really kept me going was the village. And your capturing of it, and the kind of folks that are there, what they do, what their fears are, and so on. I loved it.
And I have to say, when the old, I'll have another cliche.
Good. Let's have another
Why
one.
not? Let's have a cliche feast. But it's the whole cliche about write what you know.
Yes.
I don't know any axe murderers. And I don't know any people who are worried about axe murderers.
Stay in town. Never mind. I don't know any either.
Something to look forward to. But I do know people who gossip about each other and are worried about what other people think, and are worried about the things that are pretty much everyday things, but that loom large in our lives. And that's my characters do that. In the last book, there was a very tragic event that happened. And I wanted a very lighthearted book to follow it. I needed a lighthearted book to follow it. And Aunt Dimity,
you mean the Down Under?
In Aunt Dimity Down Under, yeah. It's not tragic. It's the cycle of life happens, and some characters die naturally and in a peaceful way. But it was heartbreaking to say goodbye to them. And when I started Aunt Dimity and the Family Tree, I just wanted a romp, and I laughed. I don't want to.
You got it.
I don't want to set anyone up for disappointment, but I laughed so much while I was writing this book. My characters were very kind to me and helped me.
I'm sorry, but you
feel better.
You've made me ask this question, which I had forgotten.
Oh, all right.
I think it's quite amazing that a series that has 16 titles in it now began with a book called Aunt Dimity's Death.
I don't do anything right.
I
was like, never put the word death in the title. Never write a book that you can't summarize in one sentence. Never write a book that's not like every other book. Well, I've done all of those things, and so far it's been working. Yeah, and it's the perfect title for it.
When the perfect gentleman, William Willis Sr., buys this old manor house, there are several things that he finds that are of interest to them. One of them is what's described as the dirty picture.
Yeah, which leads to
not
all
in that
sorts
sense. It's just
but it leads to misunderstandings.
Glommed over with
filthy
soot and stuff like that.
Exactly, and age,
which turns out to be something of great value or apparent value, called the family tree of the family that lived in this manor over the centuries. It's stolen. And when something gets stolen in a small village, the cops or whatever they're called, the constables, they come and they question the citizens to find out possibly what happened. And because
obviously somebody must have seen something.
Yes.
You must have witnesses.
Because of the propensity of gossip in this village, it's a little difficult in investigating. My friend, I still like her a lot, Laurie Shepard, she asks, did he question the villagers? He did, Charles answered. But after they bombarded him with stories about a drug lord, a film star, a footballer, a dictator with a taste for trotters, and a taxidermist named Tim Thompson, he concluded that they weren't reliable witnesses. I groaned softly and buried my face in my hands. Now, the reason why she's embarrassed about that is some of those people she created as a cover-up.
Hoist by her own petard. Tim Thompson, the taxidermist from Topeka, was her invention.
An inspired identity. I mean, being from Topeka is just great.
That's a great town.
And it just takes it
to that extra level.
The next
Well, Laurie,
step.
I should point out, is an American, and
yes.
she is living in England.
Right.
So
this book is a great ride. It's called Aunt Dimity and the Family Tree. The author who's been chatting with us, Nancy Atherton. And this has been Conversations on the Coast, and I'm Jim Foster.
Now you can find this program on iTunes, SoundCloud, and all your favorite digital outlets. Follow the show on Twitter at Jim Foster COC and email jimfostercoc@gmail.com.